This is the GIR. Actually, it's just the Clone Army, but for the sake of this video, we'll be using the terms interchangeably, even though it isn't technically correct. In this video, we'll be breaking down the structure of the GIR and how it fails to be a successful military. As a side note, this video contains a mix of canon and legends material, and all sources will be linked in the description. Also, this video will be only going over the Clone Army and will not be talking about the Navy or Special Forces, as those will be in part 2. The Grand Army of the Republic was designed with a strict hierarchy of both Jedi and clone officers, each of which was tied to a specific unit type. At the very top sat the Supreme Chancellor. During the Clone Wars, that was Palpatine himself. He technically commanded the entire GIR, Army, Navy, and Special Forces with absolute authority. Below him sat the Jedi ranks. A High Jedi General, a position held by members of the Jedi Council, commanded one of the 10 systems armies, each containing about 294,000 clone personnel. Mace Windu is a great example of this, as he commanded a systems army alpha throughout the entirety of the Clone Wars. Next came the Senior Jedi Generals. Usually Jedi Masters commanded one of the 20 sector armies within said systems arm, each with around 147,000 clones. For example, Rygol, who held this role throughout the entirety of the Clone Wars, commanding the 2nd Sector Army. The most common of the Jedi ranks was simply Jedi General, given to all Knights and Masters once the war began. They typically commanded a corps, sometimes called a division, made of 136,000 clones, or a brigade commonly referred to as a legion. Each corps and legion also had a clone commanding officer counterpart, the Marshal Commander and the Senior Commander respectively. For example, Aayla Secura and Marshal Commander Bly jointly commanded the 327th Star Corps, while Anakin Skywalker and Senior Commander Uppo commanded the 501st Legion during the final days of the Clone Wars. The next Jedi rank was Jedi Commander, usually given to Padawans. They commanded a regiment of about 2,300 clones alongside a clone regimental commander. A good example here is Caleb Dume and Commander Grey. The next step down is where things get a bit muddy. A battalion commander, often just called a clone commander, led 576 troops in a battalion. This was also sometimes the role of a major, though that rank rarely appears and seems redundant. Commander Wolf of the 104th Wolf Pack was an example of such battalion commanders. Captains commanded companies of 144 clones. The captain rank was home to perhaps one of the most famous clones out there, Captain Rex of the 501st Legion. Below him were the 1st and 2nd Lieutenants, who commanded platoons of 36 troopers. Waxer of the 212th held this rank until his death during the Battle of Umbara. Some platoons also had a Sergeant Major in their 2nd command position, an odd joint command role only seen in legends. At the squad level, we have sergeants, each in charge of a squad of 9 troopers. Sergeant Sinker of the 104th is one known example. Their second in command was a corporal, like Comet, also from the 104th. If the sergeant fell, the corporal took over. And finally, we have the backbone of the entire GIR, the clone troopers. Standard troopers didn't hold any actual commanding power, although some troopers like Fives and Echoes of the 501st sometimes did assist their commanding officers in planning and strategical operations, until their eventual promotions to ARC troopers. One final note, not every officer in the GIR was a clone or Jedi. Some non-clone officers held ranks like Brigadier General, Colonel, or Master Chief. Their authority isn't fully clear, but it seems like they paralleled clone senior or marshal commanders, and the Master Chief rank was mostly used by training instructors like the bounty hunter Brick on Kamino. So while the GIR's hierarchy looks clean on paper, you can already see some strange overlaps, especially with majors and sergeant majors, or officers like Rex, who held far more authority than their rank should allow. And those contradictions only get worse when we examine how the GIR actually operates in the field. Moving on to the GIR's operations, we can finally start to use this chart. We first see our 10 systems armies, although this chart only displays 5 of them. Let's start by talking about Systems Army Alpha. It is commanded by Mace Windu, who correctly held the title of High Jedi General. Moving down, we see sector armies, but due to their confusing nature, we are going to ignore them, as some systems armies contain too many of them and others not enough. Let's go over the corps in Systems Army Alpha. It contains the 327th Star Corps, led by Jedi General Aayla Secura and Marshal Commander Bly, the 9th Assault Corps, led by Jedi General Luminara Unduli and Commander Gree, which already reveals an issue, as a clone commander should not be commanding a corps. However, it is possible that he is a mislabeled Marshal Commander, but there is no canonical or Legends evidence of this. The 9th Assault Corps is in fact so big, it contains another corps, that being the 41st Elite Corps, which makes no sense, and it's also commanded by Grian Unduli. We also have the 21st Nova Corps, aka the Galactic Marines, commanded by High Jedi General Ki-Adi-Mundi and Marshal Commander Bakara. The 91st Mobile Reconnaissance Corps, commanded at various points by High Jedi General Mace Windu, Commander Pons, Jedi General Adi Gallia, Jedi General Stas Ali, and Marshal Commander Neo. We also will assume that the Flame Trooper Corps is part of Systems Army Alpha. Breaking down just one of the Systems Armies already reveals several issues, such as Gree, who is likely a battalion commander, being in joint command of the 9th Assault Corps. Also, Gree and Luminara both jointly command the 9th Assault Corps, the 41st Elite Corps, the 41st Scout Battalion, and Green Company, which makes absolutely no sense because how is any officer meant to command that many units at so many different levels all at the same time? It also makes no sense because how in the world does a corps contain another corps? Moving over to the 3rd Systems Army, we immediately notice that it contains no sector armies, and that High Jedi General Obi-Wan Kenobi jointly commands the Systems Army with Marshal Commander Cody, which shouldn't happen. And oh boy, time for another repeating command chain. Not only do Cody and Obi-Wan jointly command the Systems Army, they jointly command the 7th Sky Corps, the 212th, and Ghost Company. But those two aren't even our worst offenders, because welcome to the 501st, where a captain commands nearly every single unit. Yes, I'm being serious, the 501st, which is a legion, is jointly commanded by Jedi General Anakin Skywalker and Captain Rex. Why? Why is he here? It's good to note that this was fixed days prior to the war ending, when Senior Commander Apo took over joint command with General Skywalker. But anyway, during the final days of the Clone Wars, Captain Rex was promoted to Commander. What commander, you may be asking? Well, who knows? They never told us. But he got put in command of a new subdivision of the 501st, which is likely the size of a regiment, as we see at Mandalore 3 Venators, when one can comfortably house several battalions. In the show, they also refer to it as a division, which makes no sense since the 501st itself is smaller than a division, being a legion. This likely means Rex was promoted to a regimental commander. Now I'm going to stop looking at this chart before it gives me a headache from the GAR's pure stupidity. This builds to a simple statement. The GAR is fundamentally flawed as a military, especially one meant to act on a galaxy-wide scale. It breaks under the slightest bit of pressure, and the mismanagement brings up major questions. Like, even though Rex is the commanding officer of the 501st, is there another clone who initially held the rank of senior commander? If so, does that mean Rex, a captain, outranks a senior commander? On paper, Cody shouldn't even be in the command of a systems army, but yet he is. This leads to the question of, does the 3rd Systems Army contain any sector armies? If so, does Cody also command the sector army that contains the 7th Sky Corps? If not, does that mean Cody outranks someone who outranks Cody? The idea of a rank hierarchy exists so that militaries don't face the question of who outranks who, because their title clearly states it. It's also why unit structures exist, so a general isn't commanding an individual squad during an invasion. It makes no logical sense why a general needs to focus on logistics and planning the battle. Now, how could this mess possibly be fixed? Well, it's far from simple, but a great start would be removing the systems armies. They're too large and serve no real purpose. Instead, have the GAR High Command be a council of High Jedi Generals, Marshal Commanders, and Brigadier Generals. Also, the Chancellor should have no real direct power over the GAR. It makes no sense to put a politician in command of a massive military, especially when they have no clue how to operate it. Additionally, rank should also match unit command. If General Skywalker wants Captain Rex to be his second in command, just promote him to Senior Commander. Same with Gree. General Unduli should just promote him to Marshal Commander. These simple fixes won't stop the fact that the JAR is incredibly mismanaged, but it will go a long way to improve it. And it'll also go a long way to stop me having a migraines while trying to write this script. Thank you all for watching this video. I know it was a bit packed with information at times, but that's how I like lore videos, so that's my plan for this entire channel. Also, part 2 is coming, and it's going to cover the JAR's Navy and Special Forces, because I couldn't fit them into this one. And yes, Rhinonimus covered this same topic a year ago. His video is great, I've linked it in the description, but this script is my complete own breakdown using Wikipedia and other sources I found. We just happen to be using the same chart because, well, it's the best one out there, and none others compare at all. Before I go, I want to ask you if you'd be so kind as to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a bunch.